Hey there, from the KUOW newsroom, this is Seattle Now. I'm Ruby DeLuna with a roundup of today's top stories. It's Thursday, February 26th. Another western Washington city is taking steps to rein in ICE activity in the region. Everett Mayor Cassie Franklin issued a new directive yesterday that restricts federal agents from accessing non-public areas on city-owned property.
It's been heartbreaking to see the racial profiling that's having an impact on Everett families and businesses. We know there are kids staying home from school, people not going to work, or people not going about their day, dining out, or shopping for essentials.
Franklin says she also expects Everett police to intervene if they witness federal officers using unnecessary force. The directive takes effect immediately. Some of Washington's state-owned recreation areas could be closed or receive less maintenance attention this summer. Lands Commissioner Dave Upthegrove says proposed budget cuts released this week would affect maintenance at popular areas managed by Washington State. He says the agency could decide to close about 10 facilities and limit public hours at other sites.
We have more than 20 million unique visits per year to our recreation sites. The public is going to feel those cuts if we don't find a way to work with the legislature to mitigate them in the next few weeks.
Upthegrove says budget writers cut his agency's maintenance operations budget by 20% last year, and another $750,000 reduction is on the table for the next fiscal year. The Seattle Torrent is welcoming home players who competed on the U.S. women's Olympic hockey team. And as Noelle Gasca reports, the gold medal champions believe the hype around women's hockey is just getting started.
This year's Winter Olympics is the first since the creation of the Professional Women's Hockey League. Seattle Torrent forward and Team USA captain Hillary Knight told reporters on Wednesday that now Olympic attention can travel back home to the professional league.
People would only rediscover or recognize us once every 4 years. Now we have a consistent place to play. We're continuing to increase visibility and also marketability of the sport and draw new eyes and continue to grow our fan base.
The Seattle Torrent is only halfway through its first season, but the team is already drawing crowds. The Torrent broke the record for the largest crowd for a women's hockey game in a U.S. arena in November, with about 16,000 fans attending. That record was smashed just 2 months later at a match in Washington, D.C. Noelle Gasca, KUOW News.
When the World Cup comes to Seattle this June, organizers estimate the games and festivities could bring $1 billion in tourism spending to the region. It'll also bring logistical challenges like traffic headaches. So how can local businesses make sure the pros outweigh the cons? Joshua McNichols has more.
During past major events, tourists rushed through neighborhoods like the Chinatown International District, leaving businesses with all the pain and few of the benefits. The Seattle Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce has been working with neighborhood organizers in the CID to avoid that this time. It created a playbook with ideas. Restaurants could offer grab-and-go food, set up fast checkout, and add picture menus for visitors who don't speak English. Restaurants in neighborhoods farther away could arrange shuttle services to and from the games. Several business districts have also hired sports economy specialists to develop strategies. Joshua McNichols, KUOW News.
You can hear more about the economic impact of the World Cup in Seattle on the latest episode of KUOW's podcast, Booming. Washington State House Majority Leader Joe Fitzgibbon is apologizing for consuming alcohol prior to completing his committee work in the state legislature yesterday. Video from Wednesday's Appropriations Committee meeting captured Fitzgibbon's speech, which was slurred and halting.
We have still managed to put forward a budget that prioritizes the people of our state.
In a statement shared with KUOW, Fitzgibbon called his decision to drink alcohol before the committee work a serious mistake. He said his actions were a painful and embarrassing lesson. The Legislative Ethics Board did not immediately respond to KUOW's request for comment. A new study published this month found that a small dose of ketamine can help relieve fentanyl withdrawal. Researchers believe this strategy could help patients access addiction treatment without experiencing extreme discomfort. KNKX reporter Mitch Borden has more.
University of Washington's Lucinda Grandy was one of the authors of the article. She says people going through opioid withdrawal face a lot of uncomfortable symptoms.
They have intense bone pain, muscle pain, stomach upset that's like incredibly painful cramps. They get vomiting and they get diarrhea.
The study looked at 50 patients at an Alabama crisis center that used fentanyl who were starting to go through withdrawal. They were injected with a small dose of ketamine, which is a sedative, and then received a dose of buprenorphine, a medication for opioid use disorder that can bring on severe withdrawal symptoms. However, instead of feeling worse, Grandy says because of the ketamine, the majority of patients began to feel better. She hopes these findings will inspire more medical providers to use ketamine to address fentanyl withdrawal and make addiction treatment less intimidating for patients. I'm Mitch Borden, reporting.
Soon, new maps for the state of Washington will help show wildfire risks and hazards. But first, the team creating the maps is asking for help. Northwest Public Broadcasting's Courtney Flatt explains.
In 2024, Washington lawmakers required the Department of Natural Resources to develop wildfire risk and hazard maps. The goal is to help the state better prepare for wildfires. The maps could eventually be used in building codes and help plan where to focus forest thinning and prescribe burns. The map-making team is traveling around the state asking people about local risks. Matt Deere is the department's head wildland fire meteorologist. He spoke at an informational meeting in Goldendale.
We can't make these maps in a vacuum, sitting in Olympia with a really powerful computer. We can get a good start, but we definitely need the input from folks saying, does this make sense?
The team says the maps shouldn't affect insurance rates or coverage because most companies use their own modeling. I'm Courtney Flatt in Goldendale.
A federal judge in Oregon has ordered dams that operate on the Columbia and Snake Rivers to generate less hydropower and allow more water to pass for salmon. It's the latest twist in a lawsuit over endangered salmon that has gone on for nearly 30 years. In 2023, tribes, states, and environmental groups reached a landmark deal with the federal government to pause the lawsuit and pursue salmon recovery. The Trump administration canceled the deal last year, sending it back to court. The judge's order largely restores the salmon protections from the canceled agreement. They're in place temporarily while the lawsuit continues. Bill Gates' ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has been public knowledge for several years. But this week, the Microsoft co-founder apologized for those ties to the staff of the Gates Foundation. The Seattle-based foundation is one of the wealthiest in the world, with an estimated annual budget of $9 billion. Wall Street Journal reporter Emily Glazer broke the story of what Gates said at the meeting. She shared her reporting with KUOW's Kim Malcolm.
Tell us what Gates said at that meeting, what he admitted to and what he apologized for.
Yes, my understanding this was open to all Gates Foundation staff. It was actually one of 2 pre-scheduled town hall events that Gates does each year. And it was at the foundation's headquarters in a big room that they call the atrium. And people could also tune in remotely from their regional offices. So there were a lot of things Bill Gates said. This was a very long town hall, according to the recording that I reviewed. It was more than an hour long. And it was largely focused on his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, though they did talk about other matters like AI toward the end. But Bill Gates apologized to Gates Foundation staff for his ties to Epstein, for not doing enough due diligence. He admitted his mistakes, and he also talked about 2 affairs that Epstein later discovered. He said that his mistakes had cast a cloud over the Gates Foundation, but he also really insisted he didn't participate in Epstein's crimes. He said he didn't do anything illicit, that his affairs were not with any victims. It was interesting. He both apologized to foundation staff, but also was very clear in what he did not do. He didn't sleep over at the island. He did go on a plane, but he didn't go to the Florida home. So there was a little bit of back and forth there.
So is Bill Gates bound to any code of conduct at the Gates Foundation that might have some impact now?
It's a good question. Bill Gates is a board member, or they sometimes call it a trustee at the Gates Foundation. And there are board governing principles, that are publicly available. It includes language that says that each board member has to comply with various policies, including the foundation's code of conduct and conflict of interest policy, and, several others. Those two stood out to me. And right now, we haven't reported that Bill Gates had relationships with Gates Foundation staffers, but I will note that one of the two women that Bill Gates admits to having an affair with, one is a Russian physicist, and there is an email in the Epstein files that we reported on where that person, that woman, actually was an employee of a different Gates company. It's unclear if she was an employee when they had the affair, but it's really interesting that he is admitting to so many people and quite candidly that he had these affairs. I think he has to because they're in the public realm now. We had reported on another one 3 years ago with the Russian bridge player, but he was never out there saying yes, I did have this affair with this woman. And now he's saying that to his employees. And I think it's because he has to.
It's hard to overstate how important the Gates Foundation is in global philanthropy. Do you have a sense of what kind of impact, if any, what Gates is admitting to this week might have on the foundation that bears his name, whether it's in the short term or the long term?
Some people have told me before that the Gates Foundation has the power equivalent of the United States or a large country. That is how powerful it is because Bill Gates is meeting with heads of state regularly. He has impact on policies across the world. He's such a leader. He's not only one of the wealthiest people in the world, he's one of the biggest philanthropists, and he's really out there. And what I found so telling during this town hall from Tuesday night is that he says, this is a quote, "Reputation is 100% of our work." And he admits during this town hall that his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is opposite of the values of the foundation and the goals of the foundation. And he says, quote, "Our work is very reputational sensitive. People can choose to work with us or not work with us," end quote. So he's really kind of putting it out there. And I think that it's both a time where a lot of nonprofits are really stretched for funds. Federal funding has dried up. There have been a lot of studies around this in the philanthropic space. So it's not a time when a lot of nonprofits are saying no to money. But I do think even Bill Gates is admitting the reputational impact this has had for the foundation. So I would see this as major damage control.
That was Wall Street Journal reporter Emily Glazer speaking with KUOW's Kim Malcolm. Next time on Seattle Now, it's Casual Friday. We'll talk about a stinky situation on Mercer Island when a sewer blockage forced some residents to not flush their toilets for a day.
Dude, I am out of there. I'm shutting off the water main and I am bouncing. I'm getting off the island as far as I can, as quickly as I can. I want to be nowhere near it when these systems fail. Get me out.
Hear that and more tomorrow morning. That's all for today from the KUOW newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is Andy Hurst. The interview in today's episode was produced by John O'Brien. I'm Ruby DeLuna. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. We'll see you later.